Good morning, friends. Before I deliver my message this morning, I want to say a word on this Memorial Day weekend about how much I personally and all of us appreciate those who have served in the military and have given the last full measure, who have stared death in the face, lost, and have been resurrected to life in heaven. We thank them for their service. We appreciate all that they have done. And we appreciate well those who are serving in the military presently, because they face harm's way on a daily or a regular basis. So I'd like to pause now for just a moment of silent prayer and reflection as we remember those who have served and gone beyond. Let us pray. Amen. Once there was a village with a chief who had 3 sons, and each of the 3 sons had a remarkable but different talent. The oldest son was an excellent grower of olives. He was an orchard man who was able to grow in abundance olives. And when they were sickly, he was able to touch the trees and somehow miraculously restore the fruit. The second son was a shepherd. He was a wise shepherd, and he did a wonderful job of tending the sheep and seeing that the herd remained healthy, and he was able to encourage them and bring them back from sickness, and traders would come from all around to trade and to get sheep. The third son had a marvelous talent of dancing. He could dance in such a way that brought pure and total joy to the people who were watching him as he performed. He was able to bring a ray of hope and happiness, even in times of bad luck. As it happened, one day, the father called the 3 sons together and told them that he needed to go on business to another village and would be gone for a great deal of time. And he said the future and the prosperity of the village depended on their wise use of their talents and their gifts while he was gone. Things went quite well for a while after he left, but then when winter came and set in and the snow came, the olives were in bloom and they cracked, and it was quite obvious that it would be some time before they would be restored and actually produce fruit. The winter was particularly cold, and people began cutting down trees so they could have wood for their fires, and they asked the son, "Can we cut down the olive trees that you have so that we can make sure that we have enough heat for our homes and to cook on during this winter?" He was reluctant at first, but then he joined in the effort and actually helped them cut the trees down and stack the wood so that they could have heat. The winter was very brutal. There was a great deal of snow, and traders could not get to the village from faraway places to bring the goods that they needed. And the people were hungry. They had no source of food. So they went to the middle son and asked him, could we please begin having some of the sheep for food so that we can put food on our tables so we won't die of starvation? After a time, he agreed and led the sheep to slaughter, and the people had food. But the winter was long, and they began to lose hope. And when the firewood started running low and the sheep for food was getting a little bit scarce, they lost their hope and saw everything as being worse than what it really was. And one by one, they started to leave. As spring came, the chief returned, and he was unhappy to find that the only chimney in the village that had smoke coming out of the chimney was his own. And he called his 3 sons together and said, "What have you done? How have you used your talents? And where is everybody? What is going on?" The elder son said, "Father, I am so sorry, but the winter was so harsh, and I ended up having to cut down the orchard, all of the olive trees, so people would have wood to stay warm. I'm sorry, I don't deserve to serve you that way." The father said, "Son, that was a wise use of your talents." And then he asked the second son what he had done, and he told how he had led the sheep to slaughter and fed the village for a good part of the winter. And he apologized and said, "I'm ashamed to be your son because I didn't use my talents wisely." And the father said to both of the elder sons, "You have done well. You have nothing to be ashamed of. But where are all of the people?" And the brothers immediately looked at the third brother and stared at him. And he said, "Father, people lost their hope, and it was a very desperate time. And I felt that it would be inappropriate for me to dance and bring joy at a time when everybody was feeling so low and so lonely. Plus, I wanted to reserve my ability to dance for when you came home so that I can dance wonderfully for you." So I sat and waited. The father looked at the younger son and said, "There's never been a time for joy or hope greater than now when all of the village is gone. Son, dance for me." And the younger son got up and prepared to dance and collapsed and fell down unable to dance, for he had sat so long not using his talent that he had become lame and crippled and unable to use that gift at all. The father looked at the 2 older sons and said, "Thank you for what you have done." And to the third son, he said, "I am so far beyond being angry at you. All I can say is that you have received your punishment already by being unable to dance." This powerful little story in my mind demonstrates what happens when we fail to use our God-given gifts and talents. In our passage for today, Jesus prays a lovely prayer, and his prayer comes while the disciples are still in the upper room. They've had their Passover meal. They've had their feet washed. They've had discussion with Jesus. Judas has already left. And Jesus, who knows that his crucifixion is going to happen probably within the next day, takes time to pray for the disciples. And he prays that they may follow his example. And he prays that God will protect them. And he prays that he will follow in the way, they will follow in the ways of God, as Jesus has shown. He prays that they might all be one, just as Christ is one with the Father. And Jesus has every right at this point to pray that prayer. Because in the prayer he says, I've accomplished the mission that you sent me to do from beyond the beginning of time. And we can clearly understand how Jesus accomplished that mission. He was one of the greatest teachers around. He always took time to minister to people who came to him. He fed people when they were hungry when he was preaching. He calmed the sea when it was storming. There was a woman who had a hemorrhage who came believing that if she just touched his gown, she would be healed. And when she did, Jesus told her that her faith had made her whole. He raised people from the dead. He raised the son of the widow of Nain. He raised Lazarus from the dead. And on and on and on we could go, remembering how Jesus used every gift and talent that he had. So where am I going with this? We as his disciples today have been given talents and gifts. And it's my understanding and my belief from this text that we are expected to use those gifts wisely. What are some of our gifts? Some are elegant and eloquent teachers. Some, other than me, are masterful preachers. Some are smart with numbers and are excellent engineers, researchers, builders. Some are very skilled at medicine and at critical first care. See, everybody has been given a talent. And it takes all of us using our talents well and wisely for success. It's my hope that none of us end up being that younger son who sat on his talent so long, he ended up not having a talent or a gift to use. And let us remember also, if we lose hope, if we become people of despair, there's a place where people dance for joy and offer faith and hope. It's called the faith community, the church, the place to recharge. We have gone through Lent and now the Easter season. And these have been challenging times. They've been desperate times for many. And now, as we look forward, next Sunday is the Feast of Pentecost, when the people were given the power of the Holy Spirit. So as we end Lent and Easter, I want to leave us with a question for each of us to ask ourselves individually. What gift, what talent has God given me that I can share now, in this time, in this day? And secondly, am I using it well and wisely? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
So a few weeks ago, Pete and I stood up here and announced that I was moving on to a different church, that I was appointed to a new church, and I said that I couldn't tell you where I was going then, but that on the 24th I'm able to share with you. So as of July 1st, I will be moving to the Winchester district, and I will be the lead pastor at a 3-church co-op. And those churches are Marshall UMC, Markham UMC, and Linden UMC. And they are beautiful churches, and Michelle and I, we are just so thankful that we had our start here, and the prayers and the support, we are just so joyful and thankful that you guys were here for us. And I covet your prayers, Michelle and I covet your prayers, and we will be praying for each and every single one of you as we move forward in our journey through this ministry for Christ. So we thank you, we love you, and we'll be seeing you soon. Bye-bye.